Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about the Great Debate, but more specifically about how Andrew Wilson shot himself in the foot well before the debate even really kicked off. You might be asking yourself, well, GCat, how did he do that? With the almost 7-minute long opening statement which he read off his phone. And I will argue that the content of this opening statement set the stage for him in this debate in a really bad way. So let's take a look at it together. Quickly before we get to that, Andrew's claim to defend was, there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. Candace's claim to defend was, there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson is a patsy. However, I got the sense that they both came to debate or accomplish something else. Andrew Wilson so eloquently puts it in his post-debate dissection video as,
the only thing that I ever cared about debating was whether or not Candace Owens had any proof for any of her claims. And that was it. That's the only thing I ever cared about debating.
I think that's why the debate came off a bit discombobulated, because they were both there to really accomplish something other than defending and arguing for their debate claims. And now for the infamous 6-minute and 40 seconds long opening statement by Andrew.
Opening statements, opening comments.
Sure. And what I mean by overwhelming is I just find it very convincing. I think that's what most people mean when they say overwhelming evidence.
So immediately, right off the bat, he defines overwhelming in a very subjective way that can't really be debated, that he finds it very convincing. Well, no one can tell someone what they should or are allowed to find convincing, so I don't know how they're supposed to debate overwhelming at all if Andrew defines overwhelming in such a subjective manner. It almost feels like he gives himself a little out. Oh, whenever I use the claim overwhelming, I just mean whatever I find very convincing.
So I have a brief opening statement.
It's not brief.
On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was murdered. Many of you already know a lot about the events which occurred after Kirk's death. You remember the ghoulish laughter, celebrations, and madness we saw from leftists all over, from TikTok invasions, debates, posts on social media, destruction of memorials, and things like this.
So next, he immediately jumps into making this a divisive left versus right issue. Yes, the people who celebrated Charlie's death are awful people. However, they're also a very small minority of people. And what the hell does this have to do with his debate claim or any point he's trying to make? While Charlie had a very uniting effect on moderates and could find common ground with just about anyone, while Charlie's legacy is his ability to sit down with someone he disagrees with and have a civil conversation with them, steel man their position and give them the benefit of the doubt, Andrew Wilson gets up there and his second opening statement is dividing people by political lines. And you know what? I don't trust anyone that's still pushing this BS left versus right narrative.
Within weeks of Kirk's death, a cottage industry began to form, peddling various alternative theories on how he died. What special interest may have killed him, what nations were involved, and was our own government one of them?
Now he's just making some underhanded comments about conspiracy theories, but to me it really feels like he's trying to say Candace without saying Candace.
Because this was the first nationwide traumatic event in Gen Z's lifetime, the demand for answers was severe and palpable. The leading theory from the conspiracy verse is that Israel worked with the United States government to murder Charlie Kirk. Within a day or two of Kirk's death, Ian Carroll claimed that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, and the conspiracy caught on like wildfire. This theory was built on one misleading piece of evidence, that in his final days, on or around September 8th, Charlie sent a text message reading, "Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this," leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. This was sent in the context of a platforming dispute regarding Tucker Carlson. From this scintilla of misleading information, it was speculated that Israel killed Charlie Kirk because he would have successfully opposed the Iranian war. Now that's a fun theory, and who doesn't like a good, fun conspiracy theory? I like them. But there is no evidence that Israel actually killed Charlie Kirk. And if Candace has some, I'd like her to actually show it to me. I'm open to suggestions, but to date, there hasn't been any. There is, however, tons of evidence that a leftist killed Charlie Kirk, just as Charlie feared they would. I believe Charlie Kirk, and I have the receipts.
It's 6 days after the debate, and he still has not dropped the receipts. I like how he only selectively believes Charlie Kirk when it fits his narrative. More importantly, I think what he's trying to do there is strawman the opposition's position before the debate even really begins. Where Charlie Kirk would have steelmanned the opposition's argument for them, because he did not need to rely on on cheap tactics to win debates. Andrew Wilson right off the bat is pushing his goals and the official narrative by strawmanning the opposition's position. Our intuition and suspicion of Israel wasn't just based on this one text thread. Though the text does give great motive to Israel, Israel was certainly the one with the most to lose. No, our intuition and suspicions of Israel were informed by things like the insane, aggressive media influencer psyop of denying Charlie's evolving stance on Israel and trying to make it seem like he never wavered of the pro-Israel cause. How about Joe Kent's office being prevented from investigating foreign ties into Charlie Kirk's assassination?
What I'm saying about getting into too much detail is there was more for us to investigate.
You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. They basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information.
How about Netanyahu going on CNN a week after the assassination while fighting a 37-front war and saying, "We didn't do it"?
Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous.
Doth protest too much. Felt a little suspicious. None of this is positive evidence that Israeli or American intel committed the crime, but it is certainly sufficient and reasonable for people to raise an eyebrow and want to explore alternative theories. Especially when the official narrative has more holes than Swiss cheese. We don't necessarily have to believe conspiracy theories. But we also don't have to pretend like Israel has never committed political assassinations before, especially when people have been prevented from looking into it. Quickly before we proceed, if you enjoy digging through the public catacombs we call the internet, please subscribe. And now back to the video.
No, I didn't have a dream where he came to me and told me that the left killed him. No, he didn't come to me a dream and say, Candace Owens betrayed him. That never happened. In fact, I don't need dreams of any kind because I hold in my possession never before seen messages from Charlie Kirk to his security team on September 9th, 2025.
Another thinly veiled ad hominem attack on Candace, as if everything she does and says on her show is based on some dream. As if the exclusive footage and pictures of the inside of Charlie's car came to her in a dream. It's a really cheap strategy to attempt to diminish your opponent's credibility. The actual debate hasn't even started yet. This is just the opening statement.
I'm going to share the message with you today, which is the first time this information's ever been publicly revealed.
He has a never-seen-before message, which he goes on to not release. He says he will see. For now, it's just a trust me, bro. And look, TPUSA was already looking at the bottom of the barrel for their credibility, and I feel like they don't realize how much this hurts their credibility further. They didn't owe Candace this alleged text message, but they did owe it to the American people, and certainly the conservatives who they're begging for donations from. And also, if they have this said message and they released it a year ago after the assassination, it would have been a point for their official narrative. So it makes it really suspicious to me that if this is a real message, they hung on to it for this long.
On September 9th, Charlie's security team wrote to him, yes, law enforcement has been fully supportive and agreed to a security plan and posture. Tomorrow's event will be covered by both my team and the campus PD. If additional support is required, patrol units will be available. I have 11 on site. Charlie responded with this. Okay, great. Remind them that they are there for one person's security only, because I'm somewhat worried the left is trying to kill me. That was a message sent September 9th.
I personally don't believe remind them that they're there for one person's security only is something Charlie would have said. Look, I obviously didn't know Charlie Kirk personally, but from everything I've seen of him, this does not seem like something he would say at all. I can't say for sure, but when I first heard this, it felt off immediately. Also, Harrison Smith said the same thing, but for Israel, a month before the assassination, not a year after, when their narrative has been falling apart this whole time. And let's not forget what the widow said shortly after the assassination on Glenn Beck.
He was not messaging people the day before saying, I'm going to be murdered, they're coming after me, someone's going to kill me. He didn't say that. and I have
Yeah,
his
yeah,
cell
yeah.
phone.
So was Erica Kirk lying back then, or is Andrew Wilson lying now?
Whatever could he have meant by that? Well, I think he meant exactly what he said, that he was worried the left was going to try to kill him. Now, we'll discuss this more later on in the debate, and maybe I have more never-before-seen evidence that exposes just how wrong and, in my opinion, idiotic many of these conspiracy theories have been.
Spoiler alert, he did not have any more never-before-seen evidence. I mean, technically, this text message he's referring to is still never-before-seen because he still hasn't released it. Just trust me, bro.
But that's what happens when you rely on what's called the evidence of the gaps. In other words, they don't have evidence, they seem to just make up evidence.
Evidence of the gaps, you say? Is that like when they tell you to believe that these pixels are Tyler Robinson?
And what did they make up? Well, in my opinion, kind of whatever lined the pockets. And I think it's ghoulish to profit off of the death of a good man.
More ad hominem attacks. They're profiteering. If Candace is profiteering by running ads on her show, which she was doing well before Charlie Kirk's assassination, then forgive me, but I must ask, what exactly are Erica Kirk and TPUSA doing? Ghoulish indeed.
But we came here today to debate, and so let's get to it. The debate topic today is 1, my belief that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, and 2, Candace's belief that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson was a patsy and didn't kill Charlie Kirk. In sum, the audience is going to decide who has more evidence supporting their theory. My theory is that the state is correct that Tyler Robinson is the killer, at least based on evidence so far.
I mean, his theory, his position is that the state is correct, but Andrew, if you've seen the debate, doesn't really go on to defend the state's position at all.
Candace's theory that Tyler Robinson is not the killer and he's a patsy set up by the feds. To be clear, this is not a question of reasonable doubt. If it was reasonable doubt, and that's all it was, and that's all Candace was proffering, I wouldn't even be here having the debate with her. It's fair to have doubts, as the trial has yet to occur, and the state hasn't even begun to try to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But Candace makes a more forceful claim. She claims that there's more evidence that Tyler is not guilty of murder and was set up as a patsy than there is for the state's case. And I just think that that's absurd. And she will not be able to demonstrate that in any way. In fact, she has almost no real evidence at all of her theory.
I think Candace's point is the state's evidence is so weak. How weak, you might ask? Well, let's see. All they've really provided thus far to connect Tyler Robinson's identity to the crime are blurry images where it's impossible to tell that it's actually Tyler Robinson, a car they claim to be his because it's the same make and model, and get this.
Yeah, the vehicle has very distinct wheels. I won't say that they're wholly unique.
The vehicle has distinct wheels. Not unique, but distinct. Not a license plate, but just the same make, model, and distinct but non-unique wheels. What else? His gun, a .30-06 that didn't blow Charlie's neck apart, and his spine was able to stop the bullet of this .30-06. A gun and casings which have at least 3 other people's DNA on it, other than Tyler Robinson. An alleged confession that sounds like it was written by a woman longing for her lover back in the 1700s, not turned over to the defense yet. And a pre-recorded testimony from Lance Twiggs, who could not be cross-examined at this stage, where he says it looks like Tyler Robinson, you know, the footage we all saw, but he does not say so with certainty. Yeah, so the state's evidence is so weak at this point. The only thing that explains the state's zeal in going after Tyler Robinson is Tyler Robinson having been set up as a patsy. Now, you can call that circumstantial evidence, but even in court, they allow circumstantial evidence.
Whereas my theory is supported by compelling witness testimony, physical evidence, multiple confessions, all of which are independently compelling, but which are even more convincing as each piece of evidence corroborates the others.
For multiple pieces of evidence corroborating each other to be convincing, each piece of evidence on its own needs to be convincing, needs to feel legitimate in pointing to Tyler Robinson. And at this time, most of what the state has presented is nowhere near compelling. He doesn't even think it's that compelling. Listen to what he says after the opening statement.
Just out of curiosity, are you, between 0 to 100, what is the likelihood that you think Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk and killed him?
Based on the evidence right now, I don't know, I'd say 75, 85%.
75 to 85% is not overwhelming.
You'll notice the term overwhelming was included in both theories. This is because Candace demanded I defend my use of that term, which I think is fair, in describing the evidence against Tyler Robinson. She, on the other hand, only wanted to defend her theory as merely viable. That is, until I showed her clips in which she said she believed the evidence of her theory, that Tyler Robinson's a patsy, was supported by overwhelming evidence. Only then did she agree to defend that position.
Well, if all those influencers didn't come out on the same day, all using the phrase overwhelming to describe the preliminary hearing, if they didn't all do this in a coordinated manner and then falsely claim they saw 4K footage, which now we know they did not, if those influencers had just said, well, Tyler Robinson seems like a viable suspect, we wouldn't be here.
Regardless, we're both defending the claim that there's overwhelming evidence on our side, so it's worth defining that term. When I say the evidence against Robinson's overwhelming, all I'm saying is that I mean that as of right now, I find it very convincing.
So again, he defines overwhelming, the entire basis for the debate, in a very subjective manner, and we also find out that by overwhelming, what's convincing to him is 75 to 85%, that's sufficient. These people are willing to condemn a 22-year-old kid to death row based on 75 to 85% certainty.
I see almost no evidence at all, only speculation on verified claims and suggestions of things that could merely be hypothetically possible.
Hypothetically possible. Like this being Tyler Robinson is hypothetically possible.
Dreams, vibes, feelings, things like this.
Another ad hominem attack, and you forgot common sense, by the way.
Almost done, by the way.
Thank the Lord.
I have no problem defending the state's case. And
after this, he will proceed on to not defend the state's case for about 3 hours.
Welcome Candace bringing up any challenges she would like, but if I'm honest, the reason I was willing to pay the $300,000 for this debate was to finally have a chance for someone to demand Candace be held accountable for the unbelievable theories and claims she's been making. Candace's investigation is indistinguishable from a leftist operation. She couldn't be doing more damage to the right if she were trying.
There he goes again with the divisive left versus right politics. Also, who do you think you are, Tim Pool? Yes, because we all know last time around the problem with the Democrats was that they had too much internal disagreement. Oh, Candace is dividing the right on an election year. No, you know what? The Republicans lost the midterms. The moment Trump went around saying, you guys still talking about the Epstein files? Then launched a war on Iran on Israel's behalf while claiming to not care what we think about the state of the economy. When Trump became a part of the swamp, we put him in power to drain. Sweetheart, don't put that on Candace. Come on now, you can't be that stupid. And you know who else wanted the Epstein files to be released in its entirety and for arrests to happen and no war with Iran? Charlie Kirk.
She uses her considerable platform to relentlessly attack one of the most influential conservative outreach organizations for young people.
Oh, no. Make no mistake. TPUSA was on life support the moment Charlie Kirk died. Erica Kirk and her goons have simply been pulling the plug on it for the last year with their incessant lying and abhorrent stances. All Candace has done is expose them for the liars that they are. She isn't attacking Charlie's TPUSA. What we have right now is simply a carcass of TPUSA reanimated into some sort of abomination. TPUSA died with Charlie.
And she's making a mockery of the online right-wing commentary class.
What do you mean by online right-wing commentary class? What do you mean exactly? I feel like that's a Freudian slip. He thinks these online commentators are better and smarter than the rest of us, so we should just shut up and slurp up their slop. They're a different class.
She's harming Republicans in an election year by dividing them. She's attacking the very organization Charlie spent his life building. And she's attacking the people he loved, including his wife.
That's odd, because what I remember is Candace is one of the last people who joined in on pointing out all the things that were off about Erica and her behavior after Charlie died. I know this this because I was watching her show at the time and I was starting to get a little annoyed that she was ignoring all the weird shit we were seeing of Erica as it was happening. It took Candace weeks, if not months, to finally be like, yeah, something is off about how Erica is handling the situation. We all saw it. Andrew is just trying to make Candace look bad to the people who haven't kept up with Candace's show from the start by accusing her of attacking the widow. Well, let me tell you something. This widow is sus as
And it cost me $300,000, but today I hope that she finally answers for some of that.
Thank you, Andrew. Candace?
Did you get it out of your system?
There were points where Candace could have done a little better in expanding upon what she was saying and explaining herself so that people who haven't kept up with her show would understand a little better. But ultimately, all Andrew Wilson ever brought to the table during this over 3-hour-long debate was holding Candace to a much higher standard than the state and relying entirely on debate tactics and logic attacks without even a little nod to common sense. He came across very disingenuous, and Candace came across like someone who really cares about getting to the bottom of the truth for this case. My summary of the debate would be, it was kind of like if Candace had tweeted, "Politicians don't have our best interests in mind," and Andrew responded to that tweet with, "You spelled politicians wrong." I think right off the bat, Andrew Wilson absolutely destroyed his own credibility with this almost 7-minute long opening statement before the debate even began. He showed that he was not going to be an honest actor right out of the gates. And I think the lesson, the big takeaway here is no one should pay Andrew Wilson for debate classes. If you enjoy digging through the public catacombs we call the internet, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.